This is from the book It Didn't Start With You: How Inherited Family Trauma Shapes Who We Are and How to End the Cycle by Mark Wolynn. Page 51. Deutsch tells us that we can change our brains simply by imagining. Just by closing our eyes and visualizing an activity, our primary visual cortex lights up, just as it would if we were actually performing the action. Brain scans demonstrate that many of the same neurons and regions of the brain become activated whether we're imagining an event or actually living it. Deutsch describes visualization as a process that uses both imagination and memory. He says that visualizing, remembering, or imagining pleasant experiences activates many of the same sensory, motor, emotional, and cognitive circuits that fired during the real pleasant experience. Imagination is the beginning of creation, wrote the playwright Bernard Shaw in 1921, long before neuroplasticity was even considered a possibility. Shaw expounded the principle, what we imagine, we make possible. And I'd like to challenge us to consider if we're having discomfort with an upcoming conversation or an upcoming family event, a work meeting, some kind of interaction that may have conflict or may have grief. I've been practicing this visualization and the power to change our brain using neuroplasticity and really tapping in and recreating using my imagination the memory happening, right? The moment happening. So the way I use this information from this book and put it into practice looks like on the weekends, my parents want to have the children over. I have a 5 and a 6-year-old, and they love to go swimming at my parents' house. And it's all good because it really helps me clean the house, catch up on my rest, and I know my kids are going to have fun. Now, when I need to set a boundary with my parents on what, we want the kids to abide by as far as screen time or pool safety or stuff like that, it used to bring me a lot of discomfort in this conversation and how my parents would receive my boundary and how I would or wouldn't be, it was probably would, be reactive in expressing it, right? I couldn't just say it. I had to say it with some resentment, right? So I've been practicing visualizing the interaction going well before I even get there. So what that looks like is me sitting down the morning before they go and really spending time grounded in my intention for that boundary with my parents. So it would be me sitting in my backyard with my tea and closing my eyes while I hold the warm tea in my hand to really bring me to my mission. And so I sit back there and I imagine myself first, and I imagine the feelings I'm feeling and where they are in my body. So I might do my hand with my palm over, not touching my body, but maybe like 3 inches away, and scanning my body for where I'm feeling this discomfort or doubt or shame. And I really look for where it is in my body. Oh, it's in the pit of my stomach. Oh, it's in my heart. It's in my throat. My jaw is clenched. And then I acknowledge it. Okay, I'm feeling it here. And then I name the feeling. This feeling is fear or scared of shaming. This feeling is guilt. And then I let it be there. So I allow it to be there. I make space for it. How? With soothing words. Hey, this is hard. Telling your parents something that you've repeated to them that they might feel, they might take personally, they might get defensive. It's hard to be that person. It doesn't feel good. You're afraid. And I soothe myself with that. And your parents, how are they feeling? So then, once I've given myself compassion, the other part of compassion comes along and I start to picture their perspective and how they might be feeling. Maybe my parents have been trying really hard to just mind all of these boundaries that I give them. So then I beam in, as I call it, my parents. And I imagine them standing at a distance. Usually I picture a doorway because for some reason the doorway has this just barrier of protection that I feel comfortable with. So what I do is I beam them in, and I really beam in what they look like, right? Like what their body language looks like when I see them, who they are without my interactions, and what their expectations are. So maybe they're feeling nervous about me. Maybe they're really happy to see me. So I visualize them in my head, and I let my compassion unfold for them. I picture them receiving my words with understanding because I picture myself beaming the compassion through my tummy. And I picture that compassion, I turn it into a light. So I can pick a color. Usually it's a hot pink. Sometimes I picture like this neon yellow light. But I picture that compassion from me being extended to them through a light. And then they receive my compassion. And I watch that light fill them up. And it's okay if they don't understand why, but at least I visualize myself showing up with my compassion and extending it to them. And then I imagine, right, in my head, them receiving my words with kindness, validation, acceptance. And maybe they just say in my mind, "Thank you, mija. Have a good day. We'll see you later." Maybe that's how my visualization ends. Or maybe sometimes I like to wrap my parents in this light of compassion, and I sit and I hold the visualization of them receiving my compassion until I can get the light to be around them. And usually it changes colors when I share it. So it's a color that I feel for them. So right now it's telling me purple. And so once I can feel like I've shared my compassion, I've given it to them, it's now in their hands, I relinquish it. It doesn't matter how they receive it. It's now theirs to sit with. And then that's how I end my visualization. And what I feel that has done for me is really tells my body the story, the new story, right? From my brain imagining it. And then it surrenders to, oh, that's the story. Oh, that old story is not what we're doing. Okay. So then it creates this new story that only it can tell so well. And then it's pretty proud of itself for creating a safe narrative, right? So then it runs back to tell my nervous system. And it tells my body, hey, this is how it's going to go. And we're going to show up calm and we're going to leave calm. So this is what's really helped me stay in my body, stay in my intention, and really share my compassion in moments that didn't feel like I could be patient or compassionate. So that's something I wanted to share, and I'd love to hear if that worked for you. Why don't you go ahead and think of a moment right now that was uncomfortable, or that you know you might have to have a difficult conversation, and visualize the person you want to be. Visualize your compassionate self, beaming that compassion for yourself first, and then covering the other person. And see how you feel. You got this.